The idea of going to music is one of the most important concepts in classical music. Everybody knows what the term classical music means, but I don't think I could really adequately define it. What I could do is to tell you what's missing from non-classical music, and that is going to music. Sometimes people ask me, which is better, classical music or popular music? And I always say, you really can't compare the two. There's so many differences, they're not comparable. Amongst the biggest of these differences is the use of going to music. We managed to get through the first two videos on melodic patterns without using much going to music. We won't manage that this time. As music becomes more complex, going to music becomes more important. Most rondos use some going to music. Most sonatas are predominantly made up of going to music. Let's first build a rondo. There are many different varieties of rondo, but they're all based on the same principle, that there's one primary theme that keeps coming back. It could come back 3 times or 50 times, it doesn't matter. As long as it keeps coming back, the piece is a rondo. There could be secondary themes, or not. There could be sections of going to music, or not. But there must be some sort of contrasting musical material between the statements of the rondo theme. Let's create the simplest version with 2 returning statements of the theme. Let's use going to music as contrasting material between these statements. This is typical of many classical period rondos. In our first video, Melodic Building Blocks, we started with an 8 measure double period that we used as the A section of a simple binary form. Let's use that as our rondo theme. We also had 4 measures of going to music. This going to music is made up of a scale that's divided between the 2 hands. It is initiated by an arpeggio, which is based on an E major chord. Then it moves to a G natural to start a scale, which finally ends on a C sharp, which is the third of a tonic triad. So it moves from the cadence at the end of the second section of the rounded binary and ends on tonic at the start of the rounded ending. We can and should use this going to music as the going to music for our piece. There are 2 problems with using this material. 1, it's too short. 2, it starts in the wrong key. Our rondo theme ends on tonic, not dominant. We can fix these problems by copying the going to music and then pasting it in before the existing going to music. This works more smoothly if we delete the arpeggio at the beginning and if we transpose the newly pasted music up a step. Let's also move the arpeggio that starts the original going to music so that it starts on a B. This makes that arpeggio up a step from the one at the end. This is still not long enough, so let's add an extra measure in the middle. This measure is based on the arpeggio at the beginning of the original going to music. This new music helps make the pattern of the sequence stronger. Notice that the final sequence ends with an A major arpeggio. The first one ends on a B major arpeggio. This new link adds an E major arpeggio between them. This makes the arpeggiated chords fall by perfect fifths, a strong harmonic progression. It's still too short, so let's put another version of the extra measure link that we used in the middle at the beginning. Let's transpose it up a step so that it keeps the continuous scale pattern going. That's better, but now it seems to start too abruptly. I'm running out of good ideas, so let's add something simple like arpeggiated triads. We've already used some arpeggiation, so this arpeggiation should not sound too out of place. Let's start out with A major, where we're coming from, and move up to C sharp. From there, we can start back down the scale to finish the passage. This could possibly work, but it still sounds too short to me. Let's lengthen it once more by adding arpeggios at the end. I'm tired of all this sequencing, so let's just repeat A major triads. To finish it off and lead back to our rondo theme, let's throw in a descending scale. I think we've got it now. Let's see how it sounds in context. That's pretty good, but I'd like to make one more change. I'd like the going to music to end in the dominant key. This will allow us to create that effect which causes the middle section of the rondo to float above tonic because it emphasizes a pitch other than tonic. Let's just transpose the last arpeggios in the final scale up a step. This makes the arpeggios B major chords dominant to E, which will be the key for our middle section. We need to adjust the going to music right before the arpeggios. So let's take the last 4 notes of the sequence and move them up a step. This breaks the scale pattern, but I doubt anyone will notice. Composing all this going to music has been hard work. While I had certain techniques in mind, I did not have a particular structure to help me plan this section. Composing arrived at music's a lot easier. After composing a first phrase, you can simply compose a consequent phrase that has the same length and the same structure as the first phrase. To compose more arrived at music, simply repeat the process. Composing going to music is not so straightforward. It requires a certain amount of trial and error. Most composers use their intuition to determine when the going to music is long enough. They first compose and then evaluate, then make some changes and evaluate again. This is probably why most music theory teachers tend not to talk about this process. Finishing our rondo should now be easy. Let's place the rondo theme after the going to music and transpose it to the dominant. Then we need some going to music to get us back to tonic for a final statement of our theme. We already have the going to music we created for the first section. Let's transpose that down a fifth so that it leads back to tonic. Having the arpeggio start on D doesn't work very well, so let's remove the first 3 bars. Now the passage starts with an F sharp chord. This is not great either, so let's change the F sharp to an E. Now it's beginning on the right note. The rest of the passage can continue to the end as written. I would like to make 2 more changes. I'd like to get rid of the measure with the cadence at the end of the rondo theme in the middle and go directly into the going to music. This will keep the motion flowing better. I'd also like to use a C sharp diminished arpeggio at the beginning of the going to music. This darkens the mood and creates an unexpected effect. Here's the completed rondo. Marx believed that the sonata form evolved from the rondo form, so it should be relatively easy for us to turn our rondo into a sonata movement. A sonata form begins with a section having 2 themes with 2 sections of going to music after them. This is known as the exposition. Let's use the rondo theme and the going to music we composed to go after it as the first part of the exposition. For a second theme, let's use the B section of the ternary form we created in the previous video. It's in the dominant key, so it should work nicely after the passage of going to music. We want to stay in the dominant, so let's take the going to music we composed first that stayed in the tonic and transpose it to the dominant, then place it after the second theme. The going to music now begins on an A. This doesn't follow very well after the D sharp that ends the second theme, so let's remove the first three measures of the going to music so that it starts on an E sharp instead. The rhythm of this going to music doesn't seem to fit with the eighth note patterns of our second theme. So let's remove every other note from the going to music and turn it into eighth notes. This will make it flow better out of our second theme. I think we should add some sixteenths back in to get the motion back to where it was. We can do this 2 sixteenths at a time until we have worked our way back to continuous 16th note motion. Our exposition is now complete. The next section of the sonata form is the development. Let's come back to that. The last section of the sonata is the recapitulation. This recap is usually the same as the exposition, but with the second theme in the tonic key. Let's copy the exposition and paste it in at the end, changing the music leading up to the second theme so that it doesn't modulate to a new key, and transposing the second theme and the going to music after it back to tonic. The middle section of the sonata form, the development, is somewhat mysterious. When I was young, I had a teacher who explained that the development is where the composer made variations on one of the themes from the exposition. When I looked at the actual music, I didn't see that. And I didn't see that because I was expecting a variation, as in the kind of variations you have in theme and variation form. In a theme and variation, first a theme is presented, and then a variation that has the same shape and the same length as the theme. Here's Mozart's variation on the first phrase from Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. The theme of a theme and variations is arrived at music, and so are all the variations, because they're based on the theme. A development section is going to music. It may contain references to certain themes, but it doesn't have to. So let's take our going to music that we've used so many times before and use it as the basis for our development. In order to tie it in with the rest of the piece, let's add a bit of the first theme to the start of the development. Let's transpose this to the dominant and put it in minor. Let's have the first two phrases stop at cadences, but have the third one continue on. Here's the completed sonata form. It's not bad. It fulfills the requirements of the form, but it seems a little fragmented, as if pieced together from separate sources. It is, of course, actually pieced together from separate sources, but to be a good sonata form, it shouldn't sound like it. I've used this sonata example numerous times in my classes, and every time I do, I have the urge to fix it. I'm an experienced composer, and it's a little bit embarrassing to present a piece to my class that I've composed that's really not all that good. But I resist this urge because I believe it's important when teaching to show the actual process, to show that composition can be difficult, and that the more complicated the piece being composed, the more difficult the process. Those of us who teach often have the urge to make it look easy, and in so doing, we often leave some things out. These things might not be vital to the process, but they might be important in the production of a quality work. I know what I would do to make this sonata better. I'll talk about that in the next video.